Imagine playing a real-life game of Frogger just to get your groceries. Like you are standing on a curb, staring down this massive, chaotic intersection.
It's terrifying.
Right. Heavy transport trucks roaring past, thousands of commuter cars jockeying for position, and you are just trying to make it to the pharmacy on the other side without getting run over.
Exactly. It's a nightmare.
Well, imagine watching that exact same anxiety-inducing patch of asphalt transform into the epicenter of a multi-million-dollar urban renaissance.
It sounds impossible.
It sounds like a utopian city planner's pipe dream, but it is happening right now in Montreal.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a fascinating publication titled The New Face of Ahuntsic Cartierville, sourced from wikiaresidence.ca and infodrone.ca.
And we are really looking at a masterclass in urban transformation here. I mean, Ahuntsic Cartierville is a borough that is fundamentally rewriting its own DNA. Yeah, and they are doing it in real time. Our mission for you today is to explore how Montreal is using a colossal new transit project, the Ruisseau Express Metropolitan, or the REM, as a literal laboratory.
Right. They aren't just laying down train tracks.
Exactly. They are using this automated light rail network to completely rewire the physical, the economic, and the social fabric of an entire neighborhood.
Okay, let's unpack this. Give us the 30,000-foot view. How does a place go from being a loud, car-dominated transit zone into a modern, walkable urban destination?
Well, to appreciate the scale of this change, you really have to look at the baseline. Historically, the western sector of Ahuntsic Cartierville was engineered almost exclusively for the automobile.
Right, urban planners treated it as a space you pass through, not a place you actually go to.
Exactly. The infrastructure was optimized to move thousands of cars from point A to point B as rapidly as possible. And, you know, when you design a space for fast-moving cars, you inherently made it hostile to anyone outside of a car.
Makes total sense. But dropping a state-of-the-art transit station into the middle of a car-centric wasteland doesn't magically create a neighborhood. The city recognized that for the REM to actually succeed, they had to rebuild the surrounding environment around the human body.
Which means we have to start at the literal street level. Like, you can't build a futuristic transit hub if people are terrified to walk to it.
No, you really can't.
And that brings us to the intersection of Acadie and Henri-Bourassa boulevards. If you know Montreal, you know this spot. It's essentially an urban choke valve. You have heavy freight lanes slamming perpendicularly into local pedestrian flows.
It's a notoriously bad spot.
Yeah, we are talking about traffic volumes exceeding 45,000 vehicles a day. The source material paints a pretty grim picture of this intersection. It was completely untenable for pedestrians.
The physics of that intersection were just inherently hostile. I mean, you were mixing 45,000 multi-ton metal objects traveling at high speeds with vulnerable human bodies.
It's a disaster waiting to happen.
Right. The sheer geometry of the road, the wide lanes, the sweeping curves that allow cars to take corners without slowing down. It virtually guaranteed collisions.
So, to fix this, the city is injecting over $15 million into the Western Axis under their Vision Zero plan.
Yeah, and for those unfamiliar, Vision Zero is this global strategy cities use to literally engineer traffic fatalities out of existence.
Right, so they are entirely redesigning the street geometry, bumping out curbs to physically shorten the distance a pedestrian has to cross.
Which makes a huge difference.
Totally. They're adding priority signals, giving cyclists and walkers a head start before the light turns green for cars. And they are reconfiguring access ramps to force vehicles to slow down when turning.
It's a massive structural overhaul.
But wait, $15 million just to fix the geometry of one intersection? I mean, that seems like an absurd amount of money to spend on a single crosswalk when the entire metropolitan area is battling gridlock.
What's fascinating here is, if you view it strictly as a traffic management expense, sure, it sounds exorbitant. But the investment isn't about moving cars faster. It is about repairing an urban fracture.
I'm guessing an urban fracture means the road is literally acting like a physical wall between neighborhoods.
Exactly. A 6-lane boulevard with heavy truck traffic acts just like a concrete barrier. It severs the social and economic ties of a community.
Wow, yeah.
If you are an elderly resident or a parent pushing a stroller, a road like that is an impassable river. You are entirely cut off from the grocery stores, the medical clinics, and the public transit on the other side.
That's incredibly isolating.
It is.
Yeah.
So by investing that $15 million to secure this specific intersection, the city's doing much more than pouring concrete. They are prioritizing the autonomy of seniors and families. They are tearing down that invisible wall.
Making it possible for them to safely navigate their own community without the financial burden of earning a car.
Right.
So you secure the crossing, you bridge the divide, and fixing that intersection is really just phase one, because a safe street naturally leads you to the ultimate prize here, which is the new du Ruisseau REM station.
Right. But a train station is functionally useless if you can't reach it safely.
Yeah, the classic last mile problem. A multi-billion-dollar automated light rail system can whisk you downtown in 15 minutes, but if that final mile between the station and your front door feels dangerous, ridership plummets.
People simply will not use the system if they don't feel safe walking to it.
And the borough is clearly aware of this because they are investing heavily in last mile connectivity. They are drastically widening the sidewalks specifically to absorb the thousands of daily users expected at the du Ruisseau station.
Yeah, their stated goal in the reports is simple but incredibly ambitious. They want residents to be able to reach the station in under 10 minutes by bike or on foot.
Which, by the way, a 10-minute walk in a Montreal February means you need serious infrastructure. Like you need sidewalks wide enough to handle a massive snowplow and the resulting snowbanks, while still leaving room for a wheelchair.
The climate dictates the design. If the infrastructure fails in winter, it fails the city.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the raw economics of that 10-minute walk. The real estate projections in our sources show that this kind of structural transit connectivity boosts property values by 5 to 12% within an 800-meter radius of the station.
That's a huge jump.
And we are already seeing the numbers play out. By 2025, the median price for a single-family home in Ahuntsic hit $880,000. That is a 7% annual increase. I look at that 800-meter radius like a golden halo.
A golden halo, I like that.
Yeah, if your property falls inside that circle, your neighborhood's value transforms practically overnight.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that golden halo represents a fundamental rule of urban economics. Infrastructure dictates land value. When a city introduces reliable, high-speed transit, they permanently reduce the cost and time of the daily commute.
Right, and that savings gets immediately capitalized into the value of the land because buyers are willing to pay a premium to reclaim an hour of their day.
Exactly. They can afford a higher mortgage because they aren't spending thousands of dollars a year maintaining a second car, buying gas, and paying for downtown parking.
Makes total sense.
The real estate market absorbs those savings. But we have to look critically at the secondary effects of this phenomenon. Rapid property appreciation is a windfall if you already own a home inside that halo, but it introduces a severe systemic risk.
The risk of intense real estate speculation, right? Like investors see the REM coming, they buy up the properties to flip them, rents skyrocket, and the essential workers are priced out.
It's the paradox of transit-induced gentrification. You build a beautiful, sustainable public transit system, and in doing so, you displace the working-class families and the students the system was originally intended to serve.
The neighborhood hollows out, replaced by high-income earners who might only use the train occasionally.
Right.
But building 300-unit luxury towers doesn't automatically create a community. If people just take an elevator down to the lobby, walk through a tunnel, and get on a train to downtown, you haven't built a neighborhood, you've just built an expensive hotel.
Which is why municipalities have to actively intervene. They use a planning framework called Transit-Oriented Development, or TOD.
Okay, so how does TOD actually stop it from just being luxury sprawl?
Well, the goal of TOD is to leverage the intense market demand around a transit hub to force developers to build a balanced, functional ecosystem.
Right, and the borough is leaning hard into this TOD strategy. They are aggressively prioritizing what they call strategic density. So buildings of 6 or more stories clustered tightly around these transit hubs.
Which makes sense from a developer's perspective.
Totally. And what's fascinating in the source material is how developers are attacking this from entirely different angles. First, there's the angle of repurposing dead industrial zones. The Crown Condominiums project on Miller Street, led by Scalia and Ruisseau Architecture, is turning underutilized industrial land into roughly 390 units across 7 phases.
That's a massive shift in land use.
Huge. Then you have the second angle, replacing hostile infrastructure. The Henri B project on Basel-Routhier Street, developed by TGTA and Loricon with BLTA architects, took a literal concrete bus terminal right at the metro and erased it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they replaced that concrete pad with 209 modern condos and actual green living space.
Taking a heat-trapping concrete bus terminal and converting it into housing and permeable green space is the definition of maximizing transit-adjacent land.
Absolutely. The third angle is plugging critical demographic gaps. We have ALDEA Ahuntsic on Saube Street, developed by MONAV and Form Studio Architects. This isn't luxury condos, it's about 110 rental units, specifically targeted at students and healthcare workers.
Which addresses a severe shortage of new rentals in a borough historically dominated by older multiplexes.
Exactly. And finally, you have the mega projects. Bordering Saint Laurent, the Bois Franc development by Groupe Montoni and Sidley Architecture is a $100 million investment launching in September 2025. It boasts over 300 units and features a pedestrian porte cochere.
Basically, a massive, climate-controlled, protected, covered walkway straight to the REM platform.
Right. But look, I have to push back here. $100 million investments, massive covered walkways. Are these developers actually building a diverse neighborhood, or are they just cashing in on the transit hype to build isolated luxury suites for downtown commuters?
It's the most common critique of massive urban redevelopment. You look at the glossy architectural renderings, and it's easy to assume it is purely an exercise in wealth extraction.
Yeah, it definitely looks that way on paper.
But this is where the municipal government exercises its leverage. Because the city controls the zoning, they control the density. Developers want to build taller buildings to maximize their profit near the REM station.
Right.
The city grants that density, but they extract social returns in exchange.
So they use the developer's profit motive to fund the public good.
Exactly. They capture the land value uplift. The Henri B project is a perfect example of this mechanism in action. As part of their development agreement to build those 209 condos, they were mandated to contribute over $154,000 directly to the borough's affordable housing fund.
Oh, wow. So they literally have to buy their density by subsidizing affordability elsewhere in the neighborhood.
Yeah. And in the case of the Crown condominiums, Phase 7 of that development bypasses the fund entirely and directly integrates 73 social housing units into the project itself.
That's incredible.
The city is using the incredible momentum generated by the REM to leverage concessions that benefit the broader community.
Which explains the ALDEA project's focus on rentals for students and healthcare workers. If everyone living around the station is a high-earning corporate commuter, the local economic ecosystem collapses.
Because the nearby hospitals need nurses, the cafes need baristas, the colleges need students.
Right. A healthy neighborhood requires a vast mix of incomes and professions interacting on the same street.
The diversity of the housing stock dictates the diversity of the population. If you only build luxury condos, you only get one type of citizen. By mandating rentals, social housing, and affordable units, the borough ensures the neighborhood remains a functional, self-sustaining organism.
Not just a commuter dormitory.
Exactly.
That brings us to the ultimate so what of this deep dive. Buildings, concrete, train tracks, covered walkways, that is all just the hardware of a city. But the real magic of urban planning is the software. It is how humans actually live, breathe, and interact in this newly designed space once the construction dust settles.
A beautifully designed building is irrelevant if the space between the buildings is dead. The street level is where civic life actually happens.
Yeah, and the sources detail a complete infrastructure overhaul happening alongside these new residential towers to activate that street life. We are seeing new multifunctional paths specifically designed for walking and cycling, completely segregated from car traffic.
Which is huge for safety.
Totally. We are also seeing developers actively integrating ground floor commercial spaces. So instead of dead, empty glass lobbies that offer nothing to the community, you have cafes, fine grocers, pharmacies, and local services.
They are taking these old industrial zones and turning them into complete 15-minute living environments.
Right.
Activating the ground floor is a crucial psychological tool in urban design. When you have shops and cafes at eye level, you create what planners call eyes on the street. It makes the neighborhood feel safer, more vibrant, and encourages people to linger.
On top of that, there are targeted efforts to protect the vulnerable populations already living there. The report highlights the HAPAPEX projects on Henri-Bourassa. These are specifically designed to decluster social housing.
Yes. Instead of putting all the lower-income residents into one massive, isolated block, which historically creates a host of social problems, they're integrating affordable units seamlessly into the wider community.
Right. This ensures current residents aren't chased out by the property speculation we discussed earlier. So, what does this all mean? To me, it feels like the borough is taking a hallway, a place you merely pass through to get somewhere else, and turning it into a living room.
That is a brilliant analogy.
Thanks. A place where you actually want to stay, sit down, and spend your time. Ahuntsic Cartierville is no longer just a transit zone for cars zooming past. It is transforming into a green, deeply rooted destination for young professionals, students, and families.
This raises an important question, though. It forces us to ask what actually makes a city human. Is it the raw mechanical efficiency of its transport network? Or is it the quality of the interactions that happen the moment you step off the train?
It has to be both, right?
Exactly. What Ahuntsic Cartierville is proving is that successful modern urbanism requires pairing multi-billion-dollar macro infrastructure like the REM with hyper-local, human-scale micro-infrastructure.
The $15 million crosswalk makes the billion-dollar train work.
Exactly. The safe crosswalks, the widened sidewalks that can handle a winter storm, the ground floor cafes that give you a place to buy a coffee on your walk to the station.
It's all connected.
The massive wave of investor confidence we are seeing for 2026 and beyond isn't just because there's a new train track. It's because that train is embedded in an environment that has been painstakingly engineered for human beings to actually live and thrive in. The software of the neighborhood is what makes the hardware of the transit system valuable.
It really is a masterclass in urban planning. To quickly recap the journey we've taken through the source material today, we started by looking at a single, incredibly dangerous intersection, acting as an urban choke valve for 45,000 vehicles a day.
And we saw how tackling that one physical barrier catalyzed a multi-million-dollar transformation.
Right. Harnessing the economic power of the REM to blend luxury townhomes, student rentals, and mandated social housing into a unified community. A community where everything you need, including rapid transit to the heart of downtown Montreal, is accessible within a safe 10-minute walk.
It provides a reproducible blueprint for how older, auto-centric suburbs can be systematically retrofitted for the 21st century.
Absolutely. And now we want to turn it over to you. We challenge you to take a critical look at your own city's transit hubs. The next time you pass by a major station, look closely at the environment around it. Are they just massive concrete slabs to park your car and ride a train?
Or are they integrated living environments, complete with active ground floor retail and safe pedestrian crosswalks?
Exactly. You now have the mental blueprint to decode the urban planning happening in your own backyard. You can spot the hallways and the living rooms.
Once you understand the mechanics of land value and strategic density, you look at your daily commute through a completely different lens.
But we want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to mull over long after this audio stops. We've spent this entire deep dive looking at the incredible benefits of this transit-oriented renaissance. But think about the flip side of this equation.
It's a critical question.
If a massive new train line and a golden halo of infrastructure funding can fundamentally elevate the safety, the green space, and the generational wealth of a connected neighborhood, what is the long-term fate of the neighborhoods that don't get a station?
It is the defining urban challenge of the next 50 years. How we distribute the golden halo determines the equity of the entire metropolitan region.
Are we inadvertently building utopian, highly connected hubs at the risk of creating a two-tiered city? A city where only those lucky enough or wealthy enough to be on the transit map ever get to live in the living room, while everyone else is permanently stuck in the hallway.
Something to think about.
Yeah, something to think about the next time you're waiting at a crosswalk. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.